Welcome to A Seeking Heart with Allison Gingras, distributed through Breadbox Media and recorded live on Reconcile to You Facebook. We are continuing with our interview series, and I am very excited to bring the author of this week's book, Road Signs for Catholic Teens. I guess you're actually the editor, according to the cover, which also makes sense because it's a bunch of contributors, including me, which is very exciting. Jennessa Terraccino. Jennessa, thanks for joining me tonight.
So great to be with you. Thought we'd go for a little road trip.
I really like the baby stickers in the back seat.
Don't you? Me too. Bad for resale value, but
awesome for being a mom. My kids did the same thing.
Trader Joe stickers. Like I told them today, I'm like, my kids just plaster these all over our car. Like, great. Like, yeah.
Oh, that's what razor blades are for. But that's just so cute. Like that's a mom machine you got going there.
Yeah.
And someday they will be teens, which brings us to this wonderful book that you have brought together, Road Signs for Catholic Teens. I suppose, before I jump to that, I know you, but I forget not everybody knows you. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, yeah, as evidence, I'm a mom of 3 boys, 6, 4, and 2. So that's kind of crazy. I've been up in the Boston area for almost 8 years. Before that, I was living in Virginia. I was pretty much raised in Virginia. Went to Virginia Tech and then felt called to study theology in a master's program. So I went to Christendom College's master program and then became a youth minister at Our Lady of Hope in Potomac Falls and loved it. And then I met my husband and I'm like, stay, let's live in Virginia. But he was working up here. So we ended up transplanting up here, and I still love theology and ministry, but I'm kind of doing that through book form now. So
I did not know that you went to Virginia Tech. So I guess I did learn something. Here I am thinking I'm all knowing, and I'm totally not.
There's a few up here, but not too many. Too many Hokies, but shout out to my Hokies.
Well, I, for one, am glad that the Lord brought you to New England because we live kind of close to each other and I can see you in person, which is always a blessing. I love my virtual friendships, but the in real life ones are nice too once in a while.
Totally, yeah. Important, sure.
They definitely are. So, Jennessa, this book is very unique, very different. I want to talk a little bit about your inspiration for Road Signs for Catholic Teens, and then we'll dive in. I shared it on Monday, and I showed a little bit of the features, but I want to talk about the features with you. But first, what was the inspiration for Road Signs for Catholic Teens?
So on average, adults 18 and over spend 18 hours and 31 minutes in their car weekly, which amounts to 5 days a month.
Oh my gosh.
I was one of those commuters in the DC area. So I just wanted to breathe new life into the space that we're in so often. So that's one part of how it happened. I mean, I was literally driving in my master's program and just inspired on the road. I was coming up with all these analogies. And so it's not till years later that it actually comes out in book form. But something I'm really passionate about, that's kind of my coined term, is creative catechesis. I call it. I'd written the Princess Guide, Faith Lessons from Snow White, Cinderella, and Sleeping Beauty, and now I'm doing the Road Signs. But basically that I'm kind of tired of the Snoopy phone where it's like someone's explaining the faith and it's like, wah, wah, wah. You feel like you've heard it already, you're zoning out. And so having this fresh way of delivering the faith, not changing it in any way, but just kind of sparking a new interest and inspiration. And I'm also really big into like anchoring your point. So, this is going to be hard for people to forget. They read the chapter and they're driving around and they're like, oh, driving around. Crossing sign, and then it will remind them of Chino Brunciano's chapter about mentorship. So you're not going to forget the lessons as you're driving around. It'll be hard to do that. So that was my agenda.
Well, I love that idea of the anchoring the lessons. Like I think of, those little mnemonics to help you remember, but that kind of that nice visual of anchoring this when the kids are driving 5 days of their month, right? That's amazing. What a statistic that they're going to, hopefully this will spark some of the stuff that they've learned. I just want to welcome Lori and Donna, who are joining us live. Thanks, ladies, for coming on and finding out more about Jennessa and this amazing book, Road Signs for Catholic Teens. Not a mouthful, but for me, apparently.
Don't worry, I've mixed it up too. I'm like, oh,
it's so pathetic.
How to Google it and find it on Amazon. It's good.
It's so pathetic. It's right here in front of me. You think I just look down and read? I was at a restaurant yesterday and I was ordering a salad with salmon, and I'm looking at the word salmon and I just could not get the words out. And then I was out to lunch with somebody, and it was kind of embarrassing when you're like, I want this because I don't remember how you say it. But then I felt much better because
like you stare at a word as a writer, you stare at a word and it's like, is that really how it's spelled? Is that really the word? It's if you look at words too much, weird things happen to your brain. So
it's like, is that a real word?
Signs are Catholic teens. No.
You ever type up a word and be like, that's not a real word? Yes, I have totally done that. I did feel better though when my lunch mate came back from the bathroom and was like standing at the next table trying to figure out where I went. Okay. Old ladies having lunch. Come back over here. We're good.
So funny. There's nothing like you have your car, you know, people in the parking lot like hitting their keys to find where they parked, but nothing at restaurants that I know of. Where's my
next time I'll just have to go beep, beep. So Jennessa, this is a chock full book with really an amazing group of contributors. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you found and brought all of these writers together?
Yeah, really just through my own life, you know, pilgriming through just people I've met that have really inspired me. All these people are my friends in some way or another. And they're just really passionate about Jesus and their faith. And many of them work with teens or have worked with teens. And so, you know, I just wanted to let them have time to shine too. I know some of them have, like yourself, have some really great ministries, but a lot of times you see the same names in publishing, and there's a lot of people with a lot of great ideas and you know, a heart for evangelization too. So that's how it all came along. It was just people I loved who loved Jesus.
I completely understand that. When I was choosing authors for the Stay Connected series, I very much went to ones that you read their blogs or you've just spoken with them and they have a great message, but not always a platform to share it on. So I love that we share that in common. And when you asked me a couple of years ago to write this chapter, I actually wasn't doing much yet. So
No.
I'm excited that, you know, it actually was really funny.
Yeah, you're probably like, sorry. So I got you.
I totally still would have said yes, because I was very honored to be included. Though, you know, it's so funny. It was written so long ago that I was reading the chapter and I was like, did I actually say that? Or did it just get really beautifully edited?
Well, I was the editor. No, I think I shared all the changes with you though. So no.
Well, I
might have added a couple of things into your chapter, but
good. Well, that's the Holy Spirit at work, right? If we think that we're the ones who are doing the writing, we're in trouble.
Yeah, I know. I get into that groove where I'm like, I don't know where this is coming from. I know it's the Holy Spirit. It's not me. I'll just keep typing. So,
amen. And we have Pete joining us tonight. Pete, thanks for coming along. It's nice to have you here. We're talking with Jennessa Terraccino. We're talking about road signs. We'll just slow down and I'll say it right. Road Signs for Catholic Teens from Our Sunday Visitor. So tell us a little bit about the book and the format of the book and how you see it, you know, being able to be used either by teens or by a program out there, by a religious education program. There we go.
Got it. Yeah. I think it's fun. It's colorful. So each chapter has the road sign in it. And then there's awesome, you mentioned all these on Monday night, but there's awesome little pit stops and all throughout the book for all those distracted teens. We'll keep people engaged in that way who are just reading. But yeah, I love to include discussion questions. So at the end of each chapter, there's discussion questions for parents who want to read it with their teen, or for, you know, small group studies or youth ministers, whatever. So there's a lot of options. I like to eat options.
Options are good. Did you have any input on the pit stops, because like I love that Plymouth Rock is in here. That's hysterical.
I know. There's some really good ones. Carhenge. There's some hilarious ones. But
the largest ball of twine ever. Like, who thinks of these things? It's fantastic.
I know. It's fun. It makes you want to go on your own road trip just to figure out where some of all this is, right?
I love bringing out of town people to Plymouth Rock. You kind of build it up, and then they get there, and it's really Plymouth Pebble.
I did that a couple of years ago too. Since I'm kind of technically an out of townie, I'm like, oh, that's it, huh?
But and I think that is fun for kids, like, and I think that too, when they see these pit stops and maybe they have some connection with it as they're reading the chapter, this is other ways of, as you say, anchoring those lessons. When I go to Plymouth Rock now, I'm going to think of heaven.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think for driving for me was such a big deal. I come from older brothers. I was watching them drive. It's a big deal for teens to be getting their license. And also kind of scary for parents too at the same time. It's this big moment of independence. I've got the keys. But I think the same thing with our faith. I mean, this is the time that teens need to be taking ownership. Mom and dad aren't always going to be driving you to mass. You've got to decide, hey, I can drive and I'm taking ownership of my faith too, and I'm going to get there. So that's sort of, the additional concept behind it is, it's just, that's what's going on in teens' heads right now.
Well, I actually read that from the intro again on Mondays, the first half of this podcast, which is the review of this. I really love the way you built that analogy in there. Like this is time for you to take responsibility, and you can use this gift really wisely and to use it, I'm just going to read it because you say it beautifully than I ever will. While you may have, this moment when you are starting to embrace adulthood is the moment to take over the keys of your spiritual life. While you may have to wait to own your own car, to own a car, you can own your faith now. Jennessa, that is just so powerful.
Yeah, it is important. I mean, that was for me when I was a teen. That was really the time I was taking more ownership of it. So, yeah, I've always had a soft spot for teenagers and just going through college and seeing everything that's thrown at teens. And, there's not even that many books out there for teens. It's like one of the few, like there's a lot of like classic ones, but so I'm happy to put out something new. And, also, this might come out the wrong way, but I hope it doesn't. A lot of the teen books are about chastity, which I think is such an important topic. But I also think we're kind of missing a point of if we don't build our teens up in other virtues, if we don't anchor them in the faith and help them understand it, have a love and relationship with Jesus, then chastity is not going to happen if they just read, a couple books on chastity. So it's just really important to me to share with teens other aspects of the faith that they're going to find interesting and help them grow in virtue so that they can also be chaste teens,
Oh, that's a very good point. This is really solid catechesis, but yet, a teen reading it isn't going to think, oh, I'm being catechized. They're going to think this is
a lot of fun stories. Like, it's not like boring. It's a fun faith read for people.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. We have some questions. Janet wants to say hello. And then Lori has a question. I'm wondering if this is good for all ages. Like, I love the UCAT, even though I'm old, because I like the way it's written. So, I just said I read it and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Obviously it's for teens and is written to catechized teens, but what do you have to say about Lori's question?
I totally agree. My husband, who I think is smarter than me, he's a convert and now he knows more about the faith. I'm like, how did this happen in such a short time? But he read it and really enjoyed it. So I'm like, okay, if you're reading papal encyclicals and all that, and you're still getting stuff out of this book, I met someone just the other day. She was wearing a miraculous medal, and I asked her, and her niece had given it to her, and she wasn't actually going to mass anymore. But I felt like, Our Lady, I wear a miraculous medal. Our Lady totally put that, connection before me. And I'm thinking, my book, this, Road Signs for Catholic Teens, would be good for somebody even who's been away from the faith for a time, because they might not be able to pick up something that's maybe, for someone who's been in the faith for a while. So this would be a good starter for someone who wants to jump back into their faith. But like I said, someone who's reading, more intense stuff is still getting a lot out of it. So I think it is for everybody. It's a fun read, and we all drive. So you need those holy reminders on the road.
Well, one of the things I know when my sons became teens is I was always looking for touch points to share with them. So me as a mom, like I would read this myself, and then if I couldn't get them to read it, because that happens sometimes, like you really, really want them to read it, but they won't always pick it up. It's something like I can read, and then I have these talk points that we can have when we're in the car together, which I did find the Psychology Today report that says captive audience, great place to have good conversations with your kids. So, always looking for that talk point.
I've been hearing that too. I've been hearing that the car is like the best place to have conversations. So I'm filing that away as my kids are getting older. So I'm like, all right, good to know.
What is it that you really want people to know about the book to help them make a decision, and whether this is something for them or a child in their life that they love?
Sure. I mean, I kind of feel like it's for every teen. It goes through just a ton of different topics. So we break in with the first chapter, the Crossroads, just kind of setting that foundation of, you think of Crossroads, you can think of the cross of Jesus. So that beginning, let's take ownership of our faith. It's time to make that decision for yourself. But it goes through a lot of different things. So, of course, we talked about chastity. It has a dating chapter. That's in there. So, but it has a chapter about how to pray. It talks about heaven, hell, and purgatory. One of my favorite chapters that I've written, we've seen a lot of statistics and stories about teens who are leaving the faith over science, feeling that science is no longer compatible with the faith. And I'm like, that's the farthest from the truth. So I use the deer crossing sign to talk about faith and science. So my brother actually got in a really bad accident, one of my older brothers, and came home thinking a bird had hit the car because the deer actually lunged over the car. Wow. I go out to look and I see like hair sticking out of all the car crevices and like a really bad dent. And I'm like, I don't think that was a bird. But like that really shook me up being the younger sister. So I always did like the granny hunch, like, around dusk, the deer gonna jump out at me. But kind of using that analogy, is that how the church feels? Like we're all like fearful that like science is gonna jump out. Oh no, not science again. We can't defend ourselves. Science. But that's not true. So there's Fide et Ratio, which is Faith and Reason encyclical John Paul II wrote, which talks about faith and reason working together. So the church is very much about the reason side of it too. So the chapter goes through it, talks about a lot of scientists who are actually priests, who are actually Catholic. The Jesuits have like contributed a ton to science. So it's just an important chapter. So if your teen is struggling with is science compatible to our faith, that's a good place to just get their feet wet to say, hey, I guess I was wrong on this.
That's really great that you pointed that one out, because that is a chapter I did not focus on. I'm not a sciencey brain person, so I do love that the book really, like, there is truly a chapter in here for every question a teen may have, every stumbling block, and I do love that you had 3 different people tackle heaven, purgatory, and hell, and tell me why you felt that was important to include in the book.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is on people's minds. So the hell chapter is pretty interesting because she, that's a thing. Like, I love, everyone brings such a unique perspective. If I had written all the chapters, it would have been different. So just like you're saying, they're going to speak to people differently. I mean, that's part of it because we have so many different perspectives. So yeah, Miriam Marston, who I think you said you knew.
I do.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just something that maybe we don't talk enough about. And also, I mean, purgatory. I know a lot of Catholics get questions about that. Like, I mean, when I was in college, I had a lot of Protestants who were asking me questions, and I was sort of like shaking my boots and like, oh, maybe you are right. You get that question about, did Mary have, or did Jesus have brothers and sisters? But you also get kind of Protestants saying purgatory doesn't exist. And if you go through the chapter, it shows you a lot of biblical references of hey, actually, this is a biblical thing. But then also talks about some saints' visions and things like that. And so my friend who wrote the Road Narrows, a chapter on heaven, like I had to pick her because she literally, Jonna, she literally daydreams about heaven like constantly. So she's such a joyful person and just tackled the topic really well about having a relationship with Jesus and everything he wants to heal you of in order to get you to heaven. So
Jonna did a beautiful job with heaven, and I loved like Emily. I know Emily Borman too, and you know the road sign for purgatory was a detour. That's brilliant. It's so good.
Amazing job. Her story, just get the book to read her story. It totally cracked me up. One of those first time driving stories. It was so funny.
And then hell was a dead end. And then everyone, like really the stories that kick off the chapters are they really are very engaging. I know Kimberly Cook in The Winding Road and the Pink Hair. Like you really, again, you just need to get this book just to read these stories. From, that's the winding roads, the highs and lows of life. And I thought that, again, that some teens might not think of this as having to do with their faith, but I have a son who's not practicing because he hit a low and felt like God abandoned him. If this is the God you have, I'm all set. Like if he's going to abandon me when I need him the most, it's really hard to explain redemptive suffering to a 13, 14-year-old who just thought because, just wants God to be there for him and doesn't see him.
I think Kim and we were talking about Miriam on the Hell chapter. They did a good job talking about their own personal struggles. So, just because you have struggles in the faith doesn't mean like you instantly can't be Catholic. I mean, that's sort of the beauty of Catholicism. I was giving a talk the other day and I'm like, there's literally like an encyclical or a letter, or a saint who is tackled. If you have a question, it's probably been written about. Being Catholic is really awesome. Like we don't have to reinvent the wheel because we have had theologians and apostles and church fathers like for thousands of years, like looking to all these amazing questions. So, some of that is sprinkled in this book, but just if you're struggling or grappling with something, like that's okay. Like that doesn't mean you can't be Catholic. You'll probably be a stronger Catholic coming out of that, So.
Amen. We're talking with Jennessa Terraccino. We're talking about road signs for Catholic teens, and Lori was just mentioning that she has a young friend getting confirmed next week. And I just had a godson. One of my godsons got confirmed, and then I forgot that his brother was also being confirmed. And so I ordered the book for my godson and then said, well, I can't not give it to his brother. And they were both pretty excited. This is 14, the one's 16 and one's 14-year-old boys. And I mean, maybe it's because it's their godmother that, that I signed it and I thought that was cool, but really I saw them leafing through it with their heads nodding like, oh, and I think that it really is readable for all, reading levels. It's really deep content, but yet written in a way that really teens and adults like myself can really, internalize it and grapple with it and really process it. And I also see, and this will be our last point because I know we're getting to our end the time together, but I really see how this would be such a great resource for a confirmation program. Confirmation, I know our diocese, you have to go on a retreat. And we're always looking for new and exciting ways to do a confirmation retreat. I think this makes a perfect, map, road signs map, like what I did there.
I love it.
Have you created anything yet? Or I know that you'd be willing.
I think something's in the works. So people in the Boston area, stay tuned. Allison and I would love to come to your retreat and do it. So stay tuned. We'll have more details about that. But yeah, for those who maybe can't have us in person, definitely get the book. And I hope everyone enjoys it. And I really do think everyone can get something out of it. So, I mean, it's fun. It's fun having created the book and driving around and being like, oh, that road sign, that means this. Or it just sort of transforms your driving into a whole different, to be a road pilgrim. So people say, what does it mean to be a road pilgrim? And that just means, driving with Jesus and to Jesus. So our whole life is a drive to heaven, we hope. So this is just going to help people a little closer, take that step to, we should be thinking about Jesus all the time, and he can speak through anything. So even road signs.
Well, I definitely rather be on a road to heaven than a highway to hell. You do that with coming. So Jennessa, where can we keep following what you're up to, and where can we get a copy of the book?
Sure, as our Sunday Visitor says, wherever books are sold. So Barnes & Noble has it, Amazon. You can go on the Our Sunday Visitor website as well. If you want to see what I'm up to, my website's called Femme or Faux, a little different. So the French word for woman, FEMMEORFAUX. Or you can Google my name, which is probably impossible because there's a lot of double letters. But
well, I actually just realized typing it up for this, I'm like, oh, these are all these double letters, so it actually helped me remember it better.
Okay,
and of course, I'll have all those links included in this broadcast over here on Reconcile to You Facebook, as well as on my YouTube channel, and we'll be uploaded as a podcast over on Breadbox Media, and we'll have the links there. And you can always send me a message. I can help you connect with any of the authors. And just a little plug too, if you have a local bookstore, Catholic bookstore near you, please patronize it. And if they don't have the book, ask them for it. That's a great way to help not only get you the book, but also help that book owner, that bookstore owner, know what's new and exciting and what people might be looking for. Especially, most people will go to a bookstore because they're looking for a confirmation or a first communion gift. And I know personally, I've given everything. How many rosaries can you give out? Which is not a bad thing. But after first communion, usually people have it. So I was really quite excited to have something new to give my godson as his sponsor at confirmation just last week. And I truly did.
Yeah, I think it's relatable. So I'm glad to hear that they loved it too. So so I'm happy to be here with everyone, and thank you for trusting my driving.
I thought that was
listeners won't get that, but
I thought you going in your car for this interview I wish I had thought of it, because I would get in my car as well. That was brilliant.
I should have told you ahead of time. Let's drive.
Well, Jennessa Terraccino.
And we would have known who the backseat driver was. So
I am. Are you a backseat driver?
Only when my husband drives.
I need one of those driver's ed cars with the brake on my side.
I need that.
Truly. We've been talking about road signs for Catholic teens. Jennessa, thank you so much for joining us.
Amen. God bless everybody. And Our Lady of the Highway, pray for us.
Amen. That's a great way to end. What a great prayer. You have been listening to A Seeking Heart with Allison Gingras, distributed through Breadbox Media.